Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Can people hear me? It's been a really, really long time since I've done this, so I want to make sure it's working properly. Okay, says we got some people. So I was supposed to have Ash of Creativity. I haven't heard from him yet, so he may just be late. Who knows? And I invited some other people, but I think the fact that I'm rising from the dead, so to speak, means that a lot of people just didn't expect it to actually happen. So if other people join, then other people join, and we can, have that kind of group discussion. Otherwise, you are the group. You are the ones that I can have your input, and perhaps you can give me some talking points and things like that, and I can get your opinions. And maybe you've looked at these things in ways that I really haven't considered. I did have the opportunity to review all of the materials, the playtest materials. Is everyone hearing me okay? Not hearing anything from chat just yet. I will say that my internet is not being its best right now. Oh, okay. He wants. I didn't know you wanted to stream invite now, DK. Let me get that to you. Let me get that to you. I know you said that you were starting your game in 2 hours, and I didn't want to. Well, it's not that I didn't want to take you from your prep. I just thought that you needed it because I know I usually do. I'm usually scrambling that last 2 hours if I have the opportunity to scramble. Oh, Ash of Creativity, here he comes.
Hello, I'm just still getting a few microphone stuff set up. I'm
okay, I can't hear you.
Oh,
yep. All right. Sounds good. So yeah, DK, I'm getting you the invite. That one. Okay. All right. It looks like there will be a stream with people other than me, which is probably going to be a lot more pleasant in the long run. Let me change a couple things because I went into sub mode, if you will. And I do the little. We'll do it this way. Okay. Apologies, minute switch. Now let's go back to this way. That's too weird looking. Group layout. Okay. So like I said, I have the playtest material up, and we can, I could display them, but honestly, my internet is being, well, it's not even just my internet. Honestly, I need a new laptop or a new computer so bad. This one is, it's gasping its last breaths, and I just I swear everything is happening all at once right now. But I guess the important thing is that there's stuff to talk about, stuff that I think is pretty interesting. But I guess I should lay the expectations. Anybody who happens upon, and they're expecting for this to be a incredibly deep dive on, what exactly the changes have been, like what all the changes are, how they're going to affect the game. I mean, you're going to get some of that, but part of the problem is that this guy over here actually is someone who's currently designing stuff for 5e. So he's the guy who can actually make those comments. Me, I'm barely even 5e anymore. And, I really spent a decent bit of time away from it. So what you might get, especially whenever DK gets here, is you may get instead, wow, this is really not my style, but here it is. So, just because the way that they're developing the game is seemingly entirely dependent upon feedback that they're getting from the audience, and which is not too dissimilar from what they did with the 5th edition playtest, from what I understand. Because of
it's
that,
certainly interesting
it's
to
kind
watch.
Of yeah, it is. It's interesting to watch, and it's great from a sociological perspective just to see how the people out there are thinking, the ones that are doing the responses. There is the grand question of how many of them that are doing the responses are actively playing or, know that much about, because I would say that, people that have run games may have a little bit more insight, but also people that have played games, because people that, if you've never really played, you've just run, then, you're going to be You're going to be in some.
You're gonna have some biases.
I guess
and some
first
pretty
off,
severe
how you
blind
doing?
spots. Oh, how am I doing? Can you hear me?
I'm hoping there's not a delay. I can hear you, but there seems to be a delay.
I think there is a
It's
delay.
my internet.
What if you? I think it's your internet. If you try refreshing and shutting any additional background programs off, you might have. I might fix it.
Me. I don't have not much launched right now, but I'll do my damnedest. I guess it's up to you for the moment to keep them entertained. I'll be right back, everybody.
Yeah. All right. Sure thing. So I've been going over the one D&D playtest for the past couple of weeks. I just released a video on the channel Gelatinous Rube talking about one D&D's change to the Ranger and where I think it's forcing the majority of the, or rather where I think the changes in the Ranger are pointing to how the rest of the playtest is going to go and how it's going to shape the final product. I guess it's worth noting that, yes, they are accepting playtest surveys and feedback surveys, but these surveys, first of all, there's a few interesting notes. One is that only about 40,000 were collected for the first Unearthed Arcana, I believe. That might have been for both the first Unearthed Arcana and the second one, which was, I believe, character origins and expert classes. They've also since gotten a playtest for the cleric. They've moved on to releasing single playtest surveys, further denigrating their ability to actually make use of any actionable feedback. And according to them, all of the feedback, or nearly all the feedback, is one, in their approval range, which is in the 60 to 70% range. And that's been consistent from their past Unearthed Arcanas. And perhaps more importantly, virtually everything is in the high 90s. So WotC D&D is currently getting, or one D&D is ostensibly getting yes manned by the feedback that they're receiving. And that brings into question whether or not the feedback responses are actually accurate, whether or not they believe that all their changes are actually good, and whether or not they're just spouting bullshit numbers that don't have anything to do with reality. So that's my question.
So let's do a sound test. All right. Okay, you're still talking, so I'm guessing there's a delay.
Uh-oh.
Damn it. Yeah.
Hey, well, I can hear him just fine.
Right.
I can hear him.
So we have two options here. Okay. D, you having a delay from, let's see if y'all can communicate with each other without a delay.
Okay.
GK. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
all right,
I can hear you.
And I can hear pretty quickly.
Yeah. I can hear you, and I can hear Aaron, but Aaron can't hear you. That's a problem.
All right. Yeah, pedantic is the problem. it would well, do this on my triumphant return.
I mean, to be fair, it's just being pedant, you know. What is the point of pedantry if not to delay conversation? So it's on brand.
Right. What we could do is perhaps record it in Discord and have the stream broadcast there. But that's, I don't know if you have a setup for that.
And he's saying we could do it in pedantic.
Yeah, my
than
laptop would melt.
What is
Is it running antivirus right now?
Okay. Well, all right. So here's what we'll do. All right. So we have two options. We can let y'all discuss it, and I can just sit back and chat, or I can just do like a solo thing, and then we can reschedule and redo it later whenever maybe my internet is not being garbage. I agree with Fiore here as far as what's happening. WotC marketing agent sabotaging the stream. Clearly, they saw my notes. They knew exactly what was going to be.
It is deep Eldar ops.
Doing their best to stop. Well, okay. So I don't know. What do y'all think? We have option one. Option.
I would say
solo or all together.
I would say maybe you solo for now, and then we reconfigure our thoughts maybe in a week's time. Hopefully, then I won't be. I think I'm available next Saturday. That way, I won't have any games or any work. So
Tell you what, we can split the difference here. Why don't we check back in, because I'm still going to be in the chat, where I can yell at people like Aaron Dragon, who said that it fixed the level up 5e, fixed the Ranger, because I actually went through that playtest step by step, or UA by UA, with Mildred the Monk, and gave some pretty harsh critique on it. But yeah, so what we can do is we'll drop out, and then I'll basically try to come back in an hour, and we'll see what happens. In the meantime, I'm going to look up some troubleshooting.
Cool. All right, man. Well, see you then.
All right, Aaron, the floor is
sounds
yours.
like a plan. Everybody, I'm sorry it's not working out as intended. You know, it's my internet service provider is usually spot on. It's just I haven't messed with it in forever, and I guess I've got some new people nearby. Maybe they are maybe they're
growing
messing
pains,
with
my friend.
My internet. So
your internet muscles have atrophied.
Yep,
that was
growing
the problem.
pains indeed. Wait a minute.
But
can you...
we'll be.
All right, say
I
something.
can hear you. Hello, 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 hello.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So, say shit immediately.
Shit immediately.
Okay. Yeah. For a second there, I had a glimmer of hope. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove you. All right. So it's just gonna be me. So remember, everybody, you know, to be a little bit different than, because honestly, I need other people's opinions in order to perpetuate the machine that is the I don't know, I guess helpful discussion. So we do have some people have made comments. I guess first off, somebody I haven't talked to in forever, so it's good to see RPG Pundit. You know, I actually considered for a moment going back on Twitter, so I could correspond with my long lost friends on there. But it turns out that I deleted my account. I thought that I had like deactivated it, but I guess maybe it's the same thing. And I'm not starting over. That's too much. But it's good to see you, Pundit. And let's see, we got Cullen Anderson. We've got Errant Dragon, which formerly Purple Dragon, as far as I recall, which it's really good to see you. One of my few 4E advocates that is usually in the chat. Mage's Musings, it's good to see you, man. Let's see. Fiore, I mean, I see Fiore pretty frequently. I could stand to see him more, because he's a good friend of mine. He's often in the Discord, which I'm trying to be a little bit more active in the Discord nowadays. So people that you haven't seen me around, maybe if you poke your head in, you'll catch me a little bit more. Chris Johnson, always great to hear from you. Same thing, Ivan. Doof, my buddy Doof, their Discord bro, Chthonic Musings, played in the AD&D game and may still be playing now. For those who don't know, I was running a first edition game for quite a while. And it was a lot of fun, but I got a change in careers, and because of that, I just didn't have the time to dedicate to both planning all of my material and all that, and making sure that I'm understanding how the new stuff is integrated in the system, because first edition is something I'm definitely relatively new, considering most people that I know have at least like 20 years on me or more. We have some other comments too. So it's good to see everybody. I'm glad that y'all showed up. But let me just give my basic thoughts on how this thing works. I'm going to try, after I go back down, I'm going to try to bring up on screen. But again, this is kind of a dangerous proposition. I'm not even going to do that. I would consider it up on the screen, but considering how I was handling other people's cameras and stuff, I really don't think that me doing a second layer of streaming is gonna help all that much. Although honestly, it's probably my download speed. So my first thoughts whenever I was looking, so they were always talking about how they wanted to make this completely backwards compatible. And I guess technically in a way. It seems like it's following that design goal. But at the same time, I feel like they're integrating a lot of these things is going to result in some pretty substantial changes as far as like balance and things like that go. For someone like me, I don't give much of a shit about balance, which, may be contradicted by some of the comments I'm going to make as we go through. So, theoretically, it shouldn't be a bother to me at all. Really, the biggest concerns I've had have been thematic and just the way that things are affecting the overall scope of play, the way that the play handles out. So one of the big things that really got a lot of people's panties in a twist was the fact that they're changing the word race to species. I can almost guarantee you that they're probably going to change it again, because the people that they're trying to satisfy are not satisfied from that. It is okay. I'm not somebody who's incredibly well versed in the realm of biology and all that shit. So I'm not going to tell you, that which term is better or anything like that. I think that biology is kind of like beside the point. In fact, RPG Pundit made a really good video about this. Though you do have to consider he does go into a socio-political commentary that I usually try to avoid. So buyer beware on that. But if you're watching this, you've probably seen his video on that. If not, you should. It's interesting. He has a great perspective on it. But it's not going to satisfy the people that they're wanting to satisfy. So I imagine it's probably going to change again. So the fact, one of the biggest things that I noticed almost immediately was feed at first level. And the way that now, if you look at how they've put into the play test, that ability score increase is kind of like under the list of feats, then it seems that this may have already been confirmed. Maybe people already knew this. It seems that feats are no longer going to be optional. It said in the document that you can choose to interact with feats if you want, but that's from the player perspective. And I think that that's honestly where a lot of my personal disapproval is stemming from, is that, and people that are primarily players, they're going to like this, whereas I kind of dislike, is that they seem to be trying to take the DM out of the equation again. I say again, because again, that was the thing that they were well known for with third edition, right? Especially 3.5, was that, it became a self-governing machine by the density of the rules. In this case, it seems that they just seem to be wanting to make more things core than I would have liked. I kind of liked, in 5th edition, when it first came out, that they had so many things that they explicitly said, these are optional, these are not required. Now, that didn't stop the players from thinking they're required, because I like them and everybody else uses them, right? But I did appreciate the fact that they at least had that. They had these little bars in there, especially in the Dungeon Master's Guide, where you could have these suggestions for tweaking this in order to make it more your style. And I thought that was really valuable. I thought that was a good design decision. I'm getting the feeling that they're not really wanting to do that now. They're wanting this a little bit more. If you're going to depart from this, then you're on your own kind of thing. It's kind of what I'm getting from it. That's just my my take on it so far. Let's see. So now I'm going through right now the character origins document. I thought it was interesting that they seem to be trying to codify the existence of humans with dwarfism. I'm assuming that's why they included that your size can be medium or small, and with about 2 to 4 feet tall. And they seem to have continued that. I'm assuming that that's what it is, but it's not with all of them. Dragonborn, dwarves, they come as they are or whatever. So I'm assuming that was a representation thing that they were wanting to do. I don't care. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I feel like people probably were perfectly able to make that alteration in the past if they wanted to. But it doesn't. Who cares? I do think it's rather unfortunate that they've with the idea that the shorter folk are going to be just as fast, and that some of the traditionally faster folk are going to be slower. So the elf used to be one with a speed of 35 feet. Now they've been brought down to 30. Halflings used to be 25. That was something I think they changed in Tasha. Basically, all the shorties, they magically got longer, faster legs, and the elves, got shot in the knee, I guess. Some of the like minor changes, most of the minor changes, I can't really care too much about. There was a moment whenever it looked like they were doing something I thought was grievously bad. And from what I understand, I think this is something that they started to do with Tasha's. And I'm just going to tell you, I made a video way back in the day that a lot of people got mad at because I was talking about how, yeah, I'm done. Tasha's coming out and I'm done, because they thought that I was saying that because of like political opinions or anything like that. No, it was just that I didn't want more than I already had, and I felt like I didn't need it. I saw like a glimpse of what the changes were going to be, and I just didn't like it. And one of the things that I didn't like was I believe, and you could correct me, you probably will, that it seemed like they were trying to integrate more stuff with the racial things in the races. You would get more features as you level up more, and they were doing this with the Ardling whenever they first did the character origins document. And I'm glad that they seem to have backstepped that, because it really, 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 really ticked me off. Part of it is that for me, whenever you're choosing a race, I don't have a problem with you having something that develops and everything like that, but it just was kind of muddying the progression system a little bit too much for my personal tastes. The fact that you just suddenly start getting these new racial powers later in life, I mean, sure, that's represented in fantasy in a lot of ways, but my biggest problem was that we're seeing them at a point where, for instance, they had the exalted at 5th level getting lesser restoration and having by that point divine favor. Just the level of things that they were getting was really, in my opinion, encroaching too much on clerics, healers, actual healers. And to me, when the point of the class system is to have the classes, offer a separation between the different characters. And even then you've got, your different subclasses and things like that to further divide them, to, help make it where they can be a little bit more individualized, even if you have multiples of the same class. But, there are all these different avenues that they were getting in order to be able to basically bypass the need of certain classes in the game. And I think that's a mistake, honestly. That may be my particular thoughts because of the fact I've been playing old school for a while. And, that's where you get, if you're not getting stuff from your class, you're really pretty much getting it from your magic items. And I do think that that's better for the game as a whole. I think that what this ends up being is some kind of Build-A-Bear workshop mini game, where they're, a lot of time they're spending a lot of time making these characters, but because they're so samey and well, not really samey, but because they're going to step on each other's toes so much, they don't feel unique. And that's something that I really noticed a lot. Same thing with how the multi-classing pans out. Before anymore, let me see what some of the comments have been, and then we'll move forward. Let's see. Okay. They will double down on the species term change. I'm not sure about that. They are very, very, very concerned with just how people are taking these things, if they're taking offense to them. And this has been shown with another video done by RPG Pundit. I have still been watching your videos, bud, where he was talking about how they were heavily increasing the number of sensitivity specialists they were going to have reviewing all of the work before it ever goes to print, just to make sure that they aren't upsetting anybody. So honestly, I'm kind of surprised that species made it through. If this was something that had already taken effect, even though technically, I guess it's not a publication decision yet. I don't know. Maybe it didn't go to them first, but I would be very surprised if they did not get stopped there, because the root problem from their perspective is that you're saying that there are inherent differences between people based on their genetic makeups. And I say genetic makeups, I mean, anything from, entirely different species to kingdoms, like all that kind of, like anything genetic at all, like that little bit of difference that separates, us from the chimps and whatnot, makes us drastically inherently different. And there is a desire to kind of squash that, for people to be able to, say, well, it's not good to have that. Now, if they want to do that from the perspective of, well, we just want players to be able to customize their character however they want. Sure. I don't think that that's a particularly valuable opinion, but I can at least understand the logic, and I can see that, you're just putting player decision-making first. That's something that works, but otherwise, I don't see the benefit. Good to see the map of Lankmar again. Yeah. Well, that's not on the topic that I brought up, but yeah, it's good to put it back up. All right. Errant Dragon says, one, aiming to be nearly all digital, full of microtransactions, mess with additional surprise mechanics like those from EA. Yeah. So the fact that it is primarily going to be digital, I think, is going to have an interesting effect on the way people play. If you have people that buy into it heavily, then you're going to have this division where you're going to have some people that are very, very fanatically stuck with the rules, which is not something that I don't think that we've seen. I think we've seen a decent number of those among the 5e crowd, but I don't feel like they've been incredibly. I feel like it's going to increase, because then not only are you going to have it where it's front and center, but it's going to be integrated into how the game functions, which is something you can't really bypass as easily while using tabletop tools and things like that. So the people that are using the virtual tabletop are definitely going to increase that number of those that are incredibly obedient to how the rules are created. And as the people that use whatever tools that they create, especially if those tools are very closely integrated to the campaign play, then I think it's going to have a knockdown effect where a lot of this rule of cool and things like that may kind of take a little bit of a dip, especially with the number of players that are now 5e veterans, the ones that have been around for a while. They stuck around. They didn't just come in with the new craze, which was, the Stranger Things thing or Critical Role, and then play for like a year and then decide, it's not for me, I'm just going to participate in the fandom. There are going to be a lot of people, a lot of those people will probably, work their way out of the population, I would imagine. Even though we are getting new ones because season 4 Stranger Things, right? Plus we have a new movie coming out, which may not inspire anybody to play. We'll see. Let's see. We got, as far as the microtransactions and stuff, that's something they've already done with D&D Beyond, as far as like, you can piecemeal buy your content. I don't know what else they would do. I guess NFTs or, I don't know, character portraits. I don't know. Microtransact, get yourself an XP bonus for your campaign. No, I'm kidding. I'd say there's no way they're going to go that far, but we are talking about business executives and they don't know anything about gaming typically. So let's see. Species works because it eliminates half-breeds. Okay, it doesn't. It doesn't. The way that the design document is presented, it says that if you want to have a half, then we're not gonna create a half elf. You're just going to choose which feature from elf or human that you want for each little category. That's how it's going to work out. So it's not eliminating them. It's species in name only from that perspective, because they still interbreed as far as the explicitly defined material is presented. Let's see. You think it will change from species? You mean change to what? I wonder. Well, so I would say it's going to probably be like ancestry. That's something that's seen a good bit of success, and it's pretty clear cut. It's, people don't really seem to have a problem with it. Again, there may still be people that say, well, you're kind of going into the realm of genetics, and I don't like that. But who knows? Okay. So RPG Pundit says, in designing 5e, I fought very hard for feats to be optional, and I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did, because it gave me at least a little bit of wiggle room with the player. I mean, I say that ultimately players want to play, and not a lot of people want to run. So if you're running a game, there's a really good chance that unless you're running a different system, they're gonna do what you want. You know, usually they might bitch about it some. They might leave if there's another option available to them, but in a lot of places, they're gonna do what you want to do. You know, because they want to play. Unless it just becomes completely unbearable, which I don't think that's going to be a thing. So K5K, he has a great. I never know if he's being serious or not. I don't think he's played much 5e. So this may be a legitimate question. He says, when did a stat increase no longer increase a wish? No longer need a wish. Well, I'm sure at least third edition. I'm sure at least third edition, that was a thing, because, that was whenever their stats were going incredibly high. Definitely fourth edition and fifth edition as well. So pretty much ever since WotC took over. I mean, there's books. There were the books. So I guess that's always been a thing. You could find those particular books that you would increase your stats. You'd know more about that than me, though, because you've been AD&D forever. Then, of course, we have Gelatinous Rube, Ash of Creativity, for those who don't know, saying it took them the better part of a decade to get away from that dog shit design decision. So I'm making the assumption that he's talking about feats being optional, but better part of a decade. Okay, yeah, that's probably what he's talking about. That's definitely what he's talking about, because Ash of Creativity is a very, very firm supporter in feats and things like that. He just wants them to be better designed. So they will need to blend character classes. Everyone can do everything. That's what Colin says. No, they don't. They don't need to do that. So there is this school of thought that I've seen among players and DMs, that because you may have a group of players that are maybe short-staffed in your group, right? Because of that, then we need to be able to mix our characters up a whole bunch so that they can cover all of the bases. But I don't really think so. I mean, I think that's. I mean, sure, it can work for you, but I will say that being someone that's done things with hirelings and stuff like that, it's fun. It's fun to have hirelings, and it adds a lot of possibilities for the players and the DM. The fact that they can constantly develop a relationship with an NPC, even when they're in the middle of a dungeon, is valuable, and they will have something else to care about other than themselves. Part of the reason that a lot of the players seem to not feel like there's a whole lot at stake is because there isn't. The ways that they can die are not. They're there, but you really kind of have to push it. A lot of times they have to be really stupid. They have to do some very, very foolish decisions. And so if you don't have hirelings around or any other NPCs that maybe they may care about, then what is there for them really to lose, right? And there's nothing saying that you need to use the exact kind of character building that you do for PCs in order to create hirelings. You don't need to do that. It's completely unnecessary. Whenever I ran my last 5e game, they had plenty of hirelings, and you know what I did? I basically used EX stats for all of the NPCs, because that's all I need. I don't need them to function like player characters. There's no need for them to be like that. And anytime that I needed to work out, okay, their saving throw bonus be for this or whatever, just figure it out with what you've got. Part of that might be just because I've played with both systems enough, but it's not hard. Daniel Kwan is pushing to change it to Ancestry. So yeah, Ancestry is, I've seen it in other products, and it usually seems to be well received. And that means that, it's made the rounds. The consensus has been that it works. So they don't really care. When everyone is a gray blob, there will still be people who discriminate against others who are less gray and blobby than they are. So when I first started reading that, I thought it was going to be more about like gameplay perspective, but then it ended on a different note. So I Fiore with that stuff. But let's see. I thought it was going to go into how whenever everybody's a gray blob, then your character doesn't matter, and I would agree with that completely. Your character does not. You have all these lines, completely erased. Hate it. Okay. Errant Dragon says getting race feats has worked well in Pathfinder 2nd edition. I mean ancestor feats. I mean I don't know about Pathfinder 2nd edition. I do know that it's a very different game from what 5e was, and from what I would hope that 5e would be. We wouldn't want them to go in that direction too much. The character building is very, very, very integral to what Pathfinder is, from what I understand. And I don't want that to be what 5e is about. I want it to be about the play, and I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people from the data that they've collected don't play that much. They may play for 3 or 4 sessions and then their campaign is over. The amount of people that I've talked to that have said that they've never had a campaign go for more than months, it's staggering. It's completely staggering. And I'm talking about like weekly or bi-weekly sessions, not once a month, because that's easy. It's easy to do that. I say that even though I've had a few campaigns that didn't make it more than like a couple sessions, but that was just because, scheduling issues or something like that. It seems to be that people are really excited to build the character, to present the character, but then when it comes to actually playing the game, the things that you get from play don't really seem to as much. So I don't know. That may be presumptuous of me. That's just kind of what I feel like I've seen, from what people have talked from the things that people have said. And I think a lot of that is because so much from just building a character and leveling up. I think it's unfortunate. Not unfortunate. Unfortunate sounds judgy. I think it doesn't work for me, and I think that they would benefit more from having more of a focus on magic items and things that you get from play, other than levels. Okay. Kin is a good one to replace it with. I think that works as well. Founts are extremely well done in 4E/Lancer. Can't speak to 4E. I can say that 13th Age, I haven't played it, but I've read it, and I'm really eager to play it sometime. And I like the way that it works out in there. But it's just because it really, I don't know. I think it's the fact that doesn't really have like multi-classing, and it feels like they're very separate. It just works. It leans more into what they already do in a lot of ways. It's just like a slightly different path for it. And I like the way that works. Can't speak to the other ones. Oh, when y'all include things that are denigrating to other people, especially people that I know, I'm not really so eager to display the comments. Let's see. Should be gaming today, but I'm ill. Hope you feel better. Dragonbane uses, I don't know what that is. So I can play Darkwing Duck in a fantasy world. Nice. It's just primarily going to be user-made stuff because Mario Maker. Okay, so Charlotte Williams says that they've already promised microtransactions. It's going to be primarily user-made stuff. Yeah, so I'm interested. I'm curious how that's going to turn out. The effect on the game, if that's all it is going to be nil, really. I imagine it wouldn't do anything any different than having people have access to DM's Guild or whatever. So it probably would just be integrated more directly. I don't know. That's interesting. They hired people that are specialists in microtransactions and neither have any history of tabletop RPGs, Pundit says. They chose the word species to stir up controversy. That's an interesting theory. That's an interesting theory, and you could be right. I mean, there's really no such thing as bad publicity, as things have shown. You know, their apologies tend to get a lot of attention, and then that gets people talking about it. So I'm gonna have to move forward. I'm not getting a whole lot done as far as going through this. So at hand. So I didn't like the fact that they were giving races spells at first, third, and fifth level. It seemed excessive. It seemed like it was giving them the opportunity to encroach way too much on your different classes. I think that's one of the biggest design decisions that I would like to see different, but it's not going to happen. They are very well set on this idea that you should be able to customize your characters in whatever way you want. And I think that defeats the purpose of a class system, really. I think that class systems are supposed to be very separate in how they play out. Dwarves. Okay. So tremor sense, that's a new thing that dwarves get. I don't hate it. I think it's kind of weird that they have to decide when to use it and that they can only do it every so often. I think that from a thematic standpoint, that's kind of strange. You know, is it really exhausting for them to do that? No, it's really just for gameplay purposes. They don't want you to be able to do that all the time. So they're going to offer some arbitrary limit. And I feel like if that's a thing, I don't know, I'd rather them just have it all the time and then maybe cut something else. I'd rather them just have it all the time. Which is going to sound bad because as I get through more races, the complaints will increase. Resistance to poison damage. I think that's new. I think it used to be that you were resistant to the condition. I could be wrong because again, you know, like I do play 5e now still, but you know, I don't study it like I did once upon a time. I haven't kept up with things. And now you also can have advantage to end the poison condition on yourself. It just seems like they want conditions to be a lot less lasting. You see that with how they changed banishment. Banishment now, you know, they get a saving throw at the end of each of their turns. So, you know, they get, I guess that would be 10 tries. Well, not 10, I guess 9 tries to return back to the plane that they were on before they're completely banished. I get why they did it, but I don't know. It seems very, it's very soft. I guess the drama might be good for them, but I don't know. You know, the drama of continuing through the rotation of initiative and then having to see, do they come back? Do they come back? Do they come back? But at the same time, if that was the only thing that you're fighting, I personally kind of like it where it's like, no, they're gone for a minute. So what do y'all do for the next minute? And then we can get back into it instead of doing this, you know, turn by turn by turn by turn by turn kind of thing. It may not even matter though, because people would probably still want to get everything that they can possibly do within the scope of a turn anyway. So it may not matter. Let's see here. What else do we have? You know, they still have, in fact, I think dark vision is even more present now. Let's see. It looks like halflings don't have it, but I think that the dragon it now. I think it's, you know, just because dark vision, it's one of those things that if you have, you know, just like only a few humans and halflings, then you really kind of take away one of the greatest advantages that the creatures of the dungeon have, and that's the fact that they can see in the dark, you know, and that anybody using light is going to be at a disadvantage because they're going to be clearly noticeable in a way that people that are just walking around in the dark, because they can see, you know, black and white in the dark, you know. But that's, again, that's not a change. It's nothing new. It's just how they've been. So I guess I probably shouldn't waste my time getting into all that. I do see that with the orc, with their flavor text for orcs, full orcs, they have removed anything that makes them sound bad in any way, which that's something that they promised they would do. They make them seem more of like a heroic race than anything else. Just like all the rest of them. They said they were going to do it. I'm not surprised by it. So what can I say? All right, the background system. So now you have where stat increases are purely from backgrounds. That may have been something that was in Tasha's or something later. I'm fine with that. I really don't hate it that much. I think that if you're including traits that are dependent upon race, then that's fine. I don't think that you necessarily need to have ability score improvements based off, or not improvements, but bonuses and penalties based off of it. I think it makes sense. It makes sense for them to be different in what they're capable of. Just because that's how, nature and nurture, they are two forces that work together, and that should be represented in those things. I don't think that you necessarily need, different statistics to do that. I think that traits can do it, but I don't hate it. I think it works, and it makes some people be quiet about that issue. So whatever. The backgrounds are fine, I guess. I didn't really feel strong about any of them in particular. It's really the feats that I started to feel things about. The feats, man, the feats. So their whole design goal with feats as they presented them, it seems that they've accomplished, and that is that they wanted them to not be must-haves, which that's what they said they were trying to do to begin with, but they were asleep at the wheel apparently, because we all know the ones that everybody felt like they needed to get. Alert is one, for instance. The fact that, as far as I can remember, you couldn't be surprised unless you're unconscious or something. It's been a while, but there are at least a few things there where people felt like that was an incredibly important one to get. Now it's like, well, you can swap your initiative and you get a higher initiative roll. So they're making them less exciting. I mean, honestly, that's what they're doing. They're making them less exciting, which people that love feats are going to hate. They're going to hate that. I would imagine they're going to hate it. People that hate feats are probably going to, they're going to feel okay about it. Again, as Ash of Creativity was mentioning, they've had very, very, very positive feedback on most of this stuff. So clearly a lot of people like it. But whether or not they're actually playing is the question. I'm trying to see if there are any in particular that ended. So the healer feat. The healer feat is one that I think I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but it's just, the ubiquity of healing in this edition is going to be a problem based on other things. If the healer feat was a thing and the other problems that I'm going to mention later didn't exist, I'd be fine with it. Because you're taking your one of your opportunities to go into something where, hey, you can help people, you can administer first aid and help people recover. And it uses hit dice, which I think that's good. It's good that they're doing that. I mean, they've had that since 4th edition with recoveries or whatever the hell they were called. I can't remember, but it's a good mechanic to have them spend hit dice and to be able to have that as something that they can do instead of on a short rest, with somebody's assistance. I think that's neat. So I don't mind that so much. Lucky, I feel like Lucky is a little crazy, but Lucky has always been crazy. Just the fact that you can impose disadvantage or advantage on a roll just because. And everything's based on your proficiency bonus now, which I guess is good in that people will always know what their proficiency bonus is, hopefully, unless they are just playing digitally, because then they'd never bother looking at it because it's just going to tell you how many times you can use it. But for those that aren't in that situation, they might have a better grasp of what that is, and it does grow proportionally with your level. So it's a natural fit. I think that's neat, but I don't know. I'm not really big on lucky. I'm not really big on features where you can just force advantage or disadvantage on other people, on other characters. To me, that kind of it feels more like the kinds of things that we would do on a story game. I want this to happen, therefore I'm going to spend this thing. Advantage or not advantage, inspiration has always been a story game tool that was not that often implemented, and they're making it where you can implement it more regularly. It's going to have some very serious effects on how people play. The reason I don't care for it is, again, I feel like it kind of, I feel okay about the fact that they are integrating inspiration more, in a way that it's not going to be forgotten as much. I don't know that I like the way that they're doing it with the fact that you get it whenever you roll a nat 1. I don't hate it either, but I don't feel like it's right for D&D. But part of that is because I feel like D&D is one of those games where you're really supposed to let go of your personal attachments to what is going to befall your character. You're literally rolling the dice. You're making decisions. You're literally rolling the dice, and you're just going to let the dice fall where they may. That's the philosophy that I come to the table with D&D. So whenever you have more and more things that are being added on where players are going to have more say-so over the outcomes, especially now that they're saying, well, if you roll and they get a nat 1, it's an automatic failure. If they get a nat 20, it's an automatic success. Then that just gets us to a point where it's getting a little bit closer in that territory of the players get to force outcomes. They don't get to force them in quite the ways that you would with PBTA or something like that, where you get like a choice of several outcomes and you get to choose which one. But it's not to my personal taste. I feel like it would be a better optional rule to have these kinds of things. And I don't like lucky being the way it is because it's a feat and because it seems that that's going to not be optional from now on. If you're going to make things that are core, you need to make sure that it's not going to betray what the game is. And I feel like this is kind of something that steps in that direction. They've had it, I understand, and a lot of people use it. A lot of people banned it. So I don't know. The DM can always ban whatever they want. I understand that. You don't have to tell me. Magic Initiate. I've always kind of hated Magic Initiate. And again, it's for the same exact reason as why I hated the thing with the racial business. So I am not huge on multi-classing in 5th edition I'll just say 5th edition. A lot of that is because of the fact that it allows for a lot of customization, a lot of cheesy customization where you're just trying to eke the best benefits, a lot of white room theory crafting and situations where you have a very, very specifically good character or one that's good at everything. And that it leads to dissatisfaction. I think that a class system that is well divided leads to more satisfaction, unless people are probably due for a different kind of game. And so the fact that you can choose a spell, you can choose 2 cantrips and a first level spell from any kind of school, and that includes really the biggest gripe is divine. And that's something that you can change. You can change that whenever you gain a new level. You can replace the spells. It really, it's stepping on toes. Again, a lot of it is just because of cure wounds. I really, really feel like they need to leave healing to the healing classes. There are certain classes that I can understand you getting some features from other ones and things like that without it throwing things off too much. But just the level to which they are completely erasing primary features of the cleric, especially, is kind of unfortunate, because it's not like it used to be where, yeah, you have first, you got these first level spells, but you can't use your second level spells as first level spells. You got to use second level spells, no, we got spell slots here, and they can upcast. So you could just have people upcasting Cure Wounds. And there's they can use any of their slots that they want to. You can have wizards casting Cure Wounds at very high levels, because maybe there's maybe their fifth level spells just aren't that fifth level are usually pretty good. I know that there are a few maybe some second level spells. They kind of suck. I'm not really going to worry about those. I'm just going to use that for healing. I mean, that's one less thing for the cleric to be doing, for the cleric to even be necessary under those circumstances. And that's just a wizard. Anybody could do this. Especially if they are, using a class that has spell slots, then, they can just dip into that pool anytime they want to and make up for the fact that there isn't something else. And I've already explained why I think that rather than trying to broaden what a character can do, a single character, just bring more characters along, bring NPCs. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of players would benefit from that. And if they really can't handle the bookkeeping, just simplify it. Like, just get rid of the bookkeeping. Just say, instead of having, okay, you're spending this much per month, you have to feed them, you have to give them lodging or whatever. Just make it a feature, make it a class feature, not a character feature. You can have one hireling, and they can be up to this level, up to this point until you level up, whatever. Blah blah blah. We're done. Okay. So there's nothing saying that you couldn't simplify it to make it where it's not this big of a deal. Then there's something that's closer to them, but instead people just want to have pets. People just want to have pets all the time. Which, fine, have pets too. I don't care. I'm just saying it's better than to just to do this broadening of what your characters are. I don't like that. Okay. Savage Attacker. So, I mean, this is a particular nitpick, I guess, but it's not really a big change. So, anytime that they have this thing where you can re-roll a damage die, I would, and then you can do it like once per turn. I would prefer if you just do damage advantage or something like that. Just do damage advantage on the first strike. That way, they've already rolled it, and then they know exactly which one it's going to be, instead of them kind of being like, okay, let me see what I got. All right, I do want to re-roll that. Whenever you do these kinds of procedural things, it slows down combat. And 5e does not need anything else to slow down combat. It's doing just fine by itself. I mean, again, Savage, like that kind of mechanic has been there, but it's one that, that's kind of one that my opinion on it has formed, I feel like, a little bit more just from playing. There are those moments whenever we're studying to see what the die roll was, but, trying to get them before they announce, whatever the outcome is. And then we're going to decide if we can re-roll it. So with inspiration, with, anything that says under certain circumstances you can choose to re-roll, but you have to take the new one, just have them make the choice before they make the roll. Let them decide, this is something that really matters to me. I know this sounds contradictory, right? This is something that really matters to me, that I want this to work. So I'm going to put the extra effort in it before they actually make the roll. Yes, players are going to feel cheated whenever they roll 2 nat 1s, or something like that. That's just what happens. Risk and reward. The game used to be about risk and reward, and it's not quite as much now. I think that it was better when it was, and it's still you can do it, at least with 5e. You can do it. You can, I've been running 5e games with some pretty hardcore stuff. Just limiting certain things, not a lot of them, but certain things, and doing more focus on the dungeon crawl, and you can make it happen. But it does require more work, and I think that if they continue on this path, it's going to require a lot more work. I will get to comments in just a minute. I'm almost done with this document. Okay, so I already kind of hinted to the fact that now they have it where a D20, a 1 is always a failure, and a 20 is always a success. Now, I used to be very, 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 very strongly against this, but a lot of the problems that people see with that, including past Aaron, is that it's really what the problem is that they're having people roll when they shouldn't. Now, I have noticed some of the language in here that suggests that the player decides to roll before the DM even says it. For instance, when it says they're going to take a certain action, I think it was like the search action. It says, it says make a check. So it says make a check. You're taking this action, make a check. So that is kind of a force. Again, this is where I was talking about where the DM is kind of being removed from the equation. It's saying that, they can use the action to make a check right now. Well, if you're forcing the DM to let them make a check, I think people should keep in mind that they can just tell them you automatically fail or you automatically succeed. I'm going to take the action to search. I think that people may get caught up in the procedure and think, okay, well, they want to make a check, so I need to have them roll. You can't do that if you have automatic pass and automatic failure on the die. You can't do that because then you're going to have really stupid stuff happen in either direction. You're going to have them falling down the stairs and dying, or you're going to have them, jump a 1 mile gap. Which, now they have explicit jump rules that kind of address that in a way. So, which I actually think is pretty elegant. Actually, I think that was pretty good. Critical hits. Oh my God, critical hits. Now, I thought that maybe they made this. They may have changed it since then, but I didn't see it anywhere in the later documents. So as far as I know, critical hits are remaining the same. I don't like it. Now, so just to explain exactly what they did. So it's explicitly saying that it's for the damage dice of the weapon or unarmed strike a second time. So first off, that eliminates sneak attack and all those kinds of things. All those kinds of features that add extra dice. Smite. This is explicitly the weapon dice. So they're trying to decrease the oh my God, there's this big massive hit, that's doing just a ton of damage. I would imagine that some of this may have been from feedback of DMs that were upset that their NPCs were just getting trounced, just getting obliterated because somebody nailed a one hit with a crit and it was insane and holy crap, just obliterated. Now, I've played Dungeon Crawl Classics. I love Dungeon Crawl Classics. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, you can have this same thing happen from somebody spell burning everything that they have to force a massive spell to just obliterate a bad guy. And so because of that, that's not something that particularly bothers me. Whenever that has happened in the past, and it has happened a lot, I had one of my very first big bads or mini bads, mid bads that I had in my very first campaign was completely trounced. She stood no chance, and I thought she was going to obliterate them. But she just got obliterated with a smite. She got smote to hell very, very quickly over like that. It was hilarious. Players thought it was funny. But I didn't spend a whole lot of time building it up. That's just not how I am. So maybe this is going to work for people that really like to build things up, and then they won't feel the need to add all this cushion of HP to make sure that their monsters don't die too soon. But for people like me that enjoy the chaos of the die, determining these incredible things, I think it's unfortunate. Now, that's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is that it's for player characters. So player characters, not NPCs, not monsters, like not any kind of NPCs, just player characters. They're the only ones that can crit now. Again, they did not need any more help surviving. We do not need to give the players any more cushions, and it's not the only one. There's some other ones you'll see later that I just, it's sad. Really what it is some player, was crying to WotC saying, oh, I loved my character, but I got one-shotted because it was a critical and I didn't have enough HP and I died instantly and I'm so sad. There's a fucking resurrection spell. There's revivify. There are things you can, death is not the end. It doesn't have to be the end. Like, let death happen, for crying out loud. Let it happen. It's not so bad, Instead, they're just making it cushier and cushier and cushier. And this is just it's a tactical combat game is what it's turning into. It's a tactical combat game. You're always expected to win, or at least most of the time. Give me XCOM if you're going to give me that shit, you know? Let me see some people die. All right, long rest. So long rest, they added some new things. I'm seeing it on the old document, the first one. Here's my biggest issue with long rests. My biggest, oh God. So it upset me whenever I saw that they were giving all the hit dice back. They changed that where you get all your hit dice back on a long rest. That upset me because that was one of the few things that really could slow down the adventuring speed for good. It was good that they would need to rest every now and then. And that's really, you need 2 days, maybe, you know, you get one, you've used all your hit dice. You need to get some sleep. Oh, you got half of them back. So, I mean, you could go today, but maybe you want to go back tomorrow. That way you got all your hit dice back, right? You can spend more on your short rests. They're all back now after one night. Terrible. It's unnecessary. Honestly, I feel like half is too many. But that wasn't where they stopped. This one, I lost it. I was, putting my little comments in the Discord under the 5e venting chamber. And, whenever I read this one, I blew a head gasket whenever it said that all, any stats, any of their attribute loss is completely wiped away after a long rest. So they could be at 3 strength and then they get a night's rest and they're back at 18. I hate it so much. I mean, clearly what they're trying to do is they're trying to take away anything that will just straight up get you out of the game, get your character out of the game for any length of time. That's the complete wrong direction. I mean, people have already been ignoring things. Why? People are going to softball it. Why are you the problem is that an experienced DM can take this, they can see all this and they can make the tweaks, they can see the code in the matrix and see what they need to do in order to provide an adequate challenge to the players without having to just do the stupid arms race where it's like, oh well, y'all don't care about 46 damage, well let me throw a 66 at you, see how you like it. There is that, but how about we just have rules in the game that make it where it's inherently kind of challenging in some way? But that's not what's happening here. Shadows and things like that, they're going to have to kill you before you sleep. Otherwise, it's going to be like it never happened. Yeah, you're tired and everything. You just need to make it till 24 hours have elapsed since your last long rest, and you're going to be fine. It's going to be like nothing hurt you. As Ash of Creativity pointed out whenever I brought that up, that along with just how easy remove curse is and how accessible it is and all that, there's just not much that sticks with you in 5e. And there's not really much to worry about. The ubiquity of healing spells, everything. There's just not much to worry about. And it's just getting worse. I was kind of hoping that maybe they would get some kind of feedback about, hey, this is too easy. But they're not getting that. And I can't help but feel like it's because it's from people that don't play, or they don't play enough for them to notice. They don't read, they don't understand the material. I don't know. It could be that I'm being unfairly critical, that I'm assuming that they're just not smart. I don't think that they're stupid. I just don't think that they're the people that should be, there's my elitism. For anybody who wanted to mark that off of the list of Aaron the Pedantic's many flaws, a bit of an elitist, I guess. Okay, spell. All right, that's in another one. All right, it's 11 now. I'm sorry, it's 1:10, which means I have 50 minutes left to go over this. We still have quite a few people. That makes me happy. I'm surprised. So honestly, I was kind of expecting I might get like I don't know, 5 people. I might get like 5 people to show up in the stream, in participate in chat, but it looks like that is not the case. All right. DK says, Aaron, just play Old School Essentials with your friends. Cut 5e out of your life. I don't know that I'd go with OSE. Honestly, I'm really feeling the pull back to Dungeon Crawl Classics. I really am. If I could get some people interested, I'm probably going to start doing some public games online at some point. It's not going to be like frequent, like maybe once a month or something like that. That way I can just set aside a certain time. I can really put my time into making sure I'm going to do a great job and just make it happen. And I think that would be a good way to go. But I would like to get my in real life table group once I'm back to being the DM in that group. If that happens, I would like to get them at least to DCC. If not to DCC, then maybe Swords and Wizardry Complete or Old School Essentials, BX, whatever. Let's see. Yeah, Dungeon Crawl Classics is still my favorite. It is still my favorite. That's why I always have to have my DCC stuff up. Actually, this is DCC Lankmar right here. So 5 characters when literally anything happens. Oh no. Anyway. 5e is baby's first TTRPG. I can't say that. There have been so many that have been made that are so much softer, but they're good ones. I don't know. Wizard Jim says, so you're saying rather than being innately evil, orcs make the conscious choice to be baby-eating monsters. I feel even more entitled to smite them. I admire your wit there, but there the chances of any kinds of baby eating being under an orc section in any official material these days pretty limited. But based off of their previous history, then yes, clerics or potions should be the only way to heal. Okay. I would add first aid to that. I do think that having first aid options is a positive thing. Something where you can bring things as far as like herbalism and stuff like that, and then like have a separation between the real big bitchin' wounds, and then that you need something magical to take care of, where clerics are absolutely necessary, and things where maybe you can patch yourselves up a bit. And I guess kind of already taken care of in the subtext of what a short rest is, but at the same time, I don't mind that as a concept. I do think that clerics should be the primary healers. Once upon a time, clerics were more well known, I guess. Oh, not really more. They were just as well known as their ability to handle undead, and it looks like their new versions of turn undead and stuff like that. They seem pretty good. Like I don't think that they don't seem too bad, but they're not as great as what they used to be, and they just aren't the same undead specialists as they once were. And the teeth has been removed out of so many undead creatures anyway, that there were dungeons I ran. My Serpent King's Rest, for instance, when I ran that dungeon for Old School Essentials, the players simply would not go if there was not a cleric of decent level. They would say, we're going to go to the other dungeon right now, because we do not need to go in there unless we have somebody who can get rid of zombies in high numbers or ghosts or that kind of thing. We're just not going to go. And that is whenever you have a class that is valued. Same thing with thieves, right? If you have a dungeon that is very heavily trapped and it's trapped, then your likelihood of wanting to go mess about with a lack of having a thief that can detect traps is probably going to be substantially lower. Whereas if you're just going to pillage a castle just full of orcs, just stupid ass orcs, then you're probably not going to be that worried about it. You're probably going to be like, I don't need the thief quite so much, but might be good to have them here for scouting or whatever. I think it's good whenever you have clear purposes for what your classes do. And now that you have, well, now that with 5e, you have bards that are very usurpers of healing in ability. Druids, I mean, druids have always been able to heal, but they used to be more like off-brand clerics than they are now. You know, now they're a little bit more of their own thing than they used to be. The balancing mechanisms are just different. Potions being clerics and potions being the only way to heal. I think it's pretty extreme, but it works. Let's see. RPGs without math aren't RPGs. I do think that dealing with math in RPGs is not a bad thing. I do think it's not a bad thing. I enjoy it. I think keep that part of my brain engaged, and plus, it's good for the younger players. You know, for them, maybe they need to continuously practice the speed at which they can make simple calculations. I think that would help. Okay. Chthonic Musings. I actually watched this video, so I'm glad that you mentioned this. He says, my biggest concern with 1D&D so far is Crawford saying that they are trying to combat Mother May I, or in other words, DMs telling players no. Yes. Yeah, I did notice that. And maybe that's why whenever I was reading this material, I was more in tune with the idea that it could be a kind of that they're usurping the authority of the DM even more. I say even more. 5e was not that bad in that capacity. They were actually a lot that were strictly in the purview of the DM. And I think it was a good thing. But clearly that's something that they really are wanting to go against. And I'm wondering if they forgot how that made people feel with 3.5. Although it is a bit of a different animal because a lot of 3.5's stuff was just, it was too heavily into the building. But then again, it looks like they're trying to add a little bit of that by forcing feats, if that's what they're doing. Okay. Errant Dragon. Why should Rangers be allowed to heal? Now, I had this discussion recently. It's a very interesting discussion, and I feel like I shouldn't have it again without I feel like he's going to be mad because, you know, Rangers, that's a discussion that he and I like to have because he's a very firm believer in the fact that they should be cool. One thing, that exploration should be an important and enjoyable pillar of play. And both of those things are not entirely true with the way things are being laid out. But it bothered me. There's a moment, a glimmer of hope whenever I read the document, and it said that Rangers were under the expert classes. And whenever I read that, I was like, okay, expert class. Now it has a spot for spellcast, and they're not there. And it's calling them expert classes right there with rogues and with bards. Was it bards? That's kind of defeating my whole chain of thought there. There was a moment when I hoped that they were not going to give Rangers magic. And, you know, so then I brought up some other things. Well, you know, Rangers have always had, even that, yes, they have had magic. However, that was like around name level, you know, at least 9th level when you've already, you know, played your character a lot. You know, and you have to do specific trainings and things like that. And it just, it seems less like you're just a half caster. It's just what it feels like. It feels like you're just a half caster. Same thing with paladins. And I don't like anything that just feels like it's halfway between one thing and another thing. With a class system, I feel like that kind of defeats purpose, as I've been saying. So that was not, that was a big disappointment. You know, I had, well, yes, we also discussed briefly about how, you know, there is some appendix in inspiration to show that Rangers should be able to do some kind of magical things here and there. but I've always kind of hated the way that it just felt like they're just half casters rather than them feeling like this outside, wandering person that knows these little tricks here and there, and maybe just knows a few special things that they may have picked up on the fringes of civilization, dealing with the Fae and stuff like that, or just things that are kind of like supernaturally. They just do really cool, unique shit. I'm fine with that. To an extent, it's whenever it just feels like they're just spells. That's whenever it gets me. They're just spells. Part of that, we have to accept that the reason that everything is a spell in 5th edition, unless it's not, I mean, that's obvious, right? But most things are spells because of the fact that people can understand spell slots. It's a subsystem that they can very simply understand. But since they have been moving into doing things off of that a little bit more, I would have liked to have seen them to pull some of those things and just make them into class abilities rather than spells. I would have appreciated that, because again, you start getting into a point where it just feels weird. Like why make it so that the paladin gets a spell for find warhorse or whatever, find steed, rather than them just be on one, every now and then, just like they used to. They used to be able to just call on one. Why not just let them call on one? Now, you this connection. Your deity has blessed you with this steed that you have this connection to. Why not just give it to them? No, we need to do spells with everything. Spells with Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark doesn't need to be a spell. There's nothing terribly magical about being able to hit somebody a little bit better and being able to track them really well necessarily. I mean, there is a bit of a magical aspect to it because they can track at a pretty good distance, but it could be much more easily explained as just being really good at tracking, being really good at taking down one particular opponent if you really put your mind to it. I don't see anything wrong with that. Upcasting is lame. So this is the gripe. Upcasting is lame. I prefer the old school spell slots. Well, they even have spell slots, really, but I know what you mean. The spell levels and fire and forget, and that's it. I also think that that's true. There's more of a measure of just how many times in a day somebody could do X thing or Y thing. If you're bringing, if you want to do cure light wounds, then you're going to have to dedicate your first level spells to it. And that's it. That's what you're going to bring with you on the adventure. So if you don't be complaining if something is fighting you and you wish that you had light, you should have been a little bit more sparing with, instead of picking 4 cure light wounds, maybe you should have picked a light or 2, Cal Valoni's latest 5e channels I've seen, it was about whining and how story is better than what old gamers did. Well, okay. I'm going to give them a bit of a pass on that. If you view from the lens of an exercise we take in order to produce dramatic narratives with friends, yes, old school gaming is going to seem lame and boring, terrible. But if you view the game as being something that creates tension, that makes choices matter, that makes you immerse yourself in a fantasy world, I think that your old school stuff is going to win over a little bit. Maybe even a lot, because a lot of what I see in 5e gaming these days is really ignoring this, not being interested in what the game actually is, as much as just what's the narrative? What's the narrative that we're doing? You can do that with any system, so not only that, but other systems do it better. So if that's what you want to do, go get another system where you're not having to fiddle with all this stuff, waste your time with it. Do stuff that has procedures that actually focus on the aspect of play that you really want to do. Because really 5e is about combat. It's about combat. That's what I always hated that talking point because people were trying to say that, like that they want more overt social procedures and things like that. They're trying to say that there should be like social combat almost. And, to me, I've done games with that before. Dragon Age RPG has that. It's not terrible, but I kind of hated that argument, but there is truth to it. Whenever you look at what aspect of the rules do people actually engage with, most of the time, you got skill checks occasionally. And sometimes they're applied well, sometimes not. And then you have combat, and that's it. That's primarily it. You got some role-playing situations. I say role-playing. Oh my God, I can lose. You got some social encounter situations where they're going to interact with things, but most people don't even know how social interactions or encounters are supposed to work as per the rules in the DMG. So it's a combat game, and most people don't even seem to care. Like, they don't seem to be wild about the combat that much. They get some joy out of it. They get some joy out of moments. The moment when they're the person who fishes the big bad guy. The moment whenever there's a big hit and you roll all that damage. It's the moment where they happen to do something really, really interesting. But the sheer proportion of time spent with fiddly bits and the time spent where what the role is going to do actually matters is very, very, very low. I've noticed, like, it's proportionally not in sync very well. I don't know about that. Okay, there's some fighting in the comment section, but that was 20 minutes ago, 26 minutes ago. I need to see if, so the only reason Pundit said that he was here was because he's sick and he can't run his game today. So I need to see if sometime he'll come on here and talk with friend Ash of Creativity, because I think they could have some some funny interactions. For those who don't know, he has particular qualms with how RPG Pundit does not have magic items be that plentiful in Lion and Dragon. But I want to say we'll leave that for another time. Death is very circumventable. If you really want to, you can drag the PC's ass out of baby jail or hell. Ruins of Symbaroum has fantastic rules for resting that might be worth looking. I've heard good things about Symbaroum. I don't know that I'd be looking at it anytime soon. The stuff on my agenda right now. Haha. Yes. This came in. So I have that. And I'm definitely wanting to read. I never read through the classic one. So I need to read through that. And I also want to see what they did with the 5e stuff, because I'm curious about what Goodman Games has been doing with their, trying to adapt and create new content for these things. And then I had this come in, which I'm really excited about. It's so far, it looks really cool. It is massive, and full of stuff in a city, full of zombies and all kinds of things. I'm excited. I'm really happy that I got Whitechester in. Charlotte Williams, could you do more DCC videos, like maybe a monster creation guide? I could. I would like to. And I was saying earlier that I really want to get back into DCC. As far as a monster creation guide, I really haven't created a lot of monsters for. Okay, let me rephrase that. So for DCC, I tended to use a lot of modules, which I don't normally do. DCC is one of the few product lines where I tended to use a lot of modules. So far, I've really only done that with DCC and with First Edition or BX. Those are the only things I tend to use a lot of modules. I've done a little bit with Lamentations to mixed effect, but DCC, I often go to the modules, and the modules, they have their monsters figured out. I think it would be fun to include that. to do a video on that. And it's really for me to do that though, it's going to require me actually taking the time to make more monsters. So I'm not going to be ready to do a video like that anytime soon, unfortunately. But I could go through at least, the things that they provide in the rule book about making your monsters, because there are a lot of like little things here and there, little charts and things like that can make your monsters feel a little bit more unique. And I think that those are beneficial. And just maybe a closer look at exactly how the monsters are built, and how they are tweaked. I think that that's worth investing into. Let's see. Dark Knight says, with regards to public games, you better run Lion and Dragon or else I'll be very sad. Lion and Dragon, I would not do with the public game format. The reason is that Lion and Dragon, the public game format that I tend to do, it doesn't matter if you show up this time and you miss 5 times. We're doing dungeon crawls, buddy. And it's not going to be the same group from this one to the next one necessarily. It might be, but it might not be. And it really doesn't matter. Lion and Dragon is not that game. That's a game where player characters, well, the players really matter. The way that I would like to run Lion and Dragon. It's so that's the big thing there, because you need to have this continuity of player choices that are going to be affected and shaped by what happens in the game world. In a way that with Dungeon Crawl Classics, you pick up a magic sword in the dungeon. You got some more money. You can spend the money. You can use the sword. It's self-perpetuating in a way that with Lion and Dragon, I feel like you get more from continued play, continued interconnected play. I think having only one class be required healer is an example of bad game design. Okay. Having one required healer. Okay, so I don't know that I agree. And, the reason that I say that is that when I played BX, if you wanted healing, it was from the cleric. That's where it would come from. It worked perfectly fine. The thing was though, is that healing was not something you could rely on quite as much. It was something that was incredibly useful, but more often than not, what's more valuable than a cure light wounds? Light. Light is very, very, very useful in that situation. Things like these little things here that you can use to make it so that nobody gets hit. Hopefully, that is going to be a lot. Deterrent is a lot better than fixing the wounds, because a lot of times the wounds kill you. You can't heal a dead person, and especially at the low levels, they're going to die a lot of times. Once they get higher level, yes, there is that kind of thing where you have cleric that are needing to prepare lots of healing spells in order to keep the adventure machine going. But at the same time, the way that people play, well, I mean, the point, the fact of the matter is that you don't dedicate all of your spells to it. You can't, because as I said, what am I going to choose for a second level spell? Well, I can't choose Cure Light Wounds. I guess I can't remember what Cure Moderate Wounds is. I think, is that 3? I can't remember. It's been too long. But you aren't going to dedicate every level of your spells to it. I guess maybe there is a negative connotation to the idea that you have to play a religious character if you want to be able to heal. And yeah, I guess you got me there. I don't really have any opposition to the idea of like a barber surgeon class. People have been talking about it in the Discord. We've seen some iterations of it in various games. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's good. The problem that I primarily have is not that clerics aren't the only healing class. It's that the concept of a healing class is really kind of fucked at this point, because if you look at it, so what can a druid do? Well, the druid can heal. The druid can transform into things and kick the shit out of things, very, very, very well. They can do all kinds of utility magic. They can do some offensive magic and to quite great utility. So they have a pretty wide range of things that they can do, along with healing. Clerics are pretty powerful. They can hit pretty decently hard, but at the same time, other than the little bits that they get with undead and being better at healing than most other ones, they just kind of lose their identity in a lot of ways. It is purely a role-playing conceit. And even then they just don't feel special. They don't really feel that special in any particular way. Bards are skill monkeys, and they're also incredible healers. And they're also pretty damn good counterspellers. There's all these little things like this that I don't know if they just didn't see how it worked together or whatever. But on top of that, you also have pretty, if you want it, as a bard, and you also have access to quite a bit of weaponry, and you're pretty good at hitting things. I mean, so it's all around. That's really my biggest gripe. It's not that that I want the clerics to be the only healers. It's that if we're going to have a healing classes, let's lean into the concept that we have healing or support oriented classes. Alternatives, I'm fine with. That's pretty much it. I feel like their classes should have a niche that they fall into, and I feel like that's been interesting. Says, I really wanted herbalism to be a big part of for healing, especially at lower levels, but I wasn't listened to on that one. Instead, you just magically heal huge wounds from rests. Yeah, that is. Okay, there are a lot of really interested, really interesting things that are being said. I did not get my White Chester early. No, other people have been getting them. As it just seems that this is just when it's coming out. So, the closest thing I had to any kind of special privilege was, being asked for everybody. He was asking for assistance on certain things, and he did that from a lot of people that he kind of values their opinion or whatever. And but I couldn't. I had too much going on, which sucks. Yeah, so I should have known that this would ruffle James's stuff if they want to. So baseline shitty games don't matter. Okay. Alex says you tend to find healing potions a lot when the DM rolls for treasure. Very true. Very true. There are a lot of people that I've met that DM 5th edition that don't know that you can roll for treasure or know how to roll for treasure. It's something. Okay. So that's let's see how much time I have left. Okay, I got 20 minutes. So I'm going to kind of briefly go through what's going on here in the cleric stuff. Okay. I really didn't feel any particular way one way or the other about quite a bit of what they did. A lot of it seems, pretty similar to what they were already doing. It looks like, rather than your domain, deciding if you have heavy armor, if you can have heavy armor or not, now it's basically you just kind of choose it. It doesn't matter what deity you have, what domain you belong to, you can either get it or not get it depending on what holy order you have. I actually don't hate that idea at all. It's fine actually. Because it kind of makes sense that there would be some more scholarly clerics or cloisterly clerics, and that there would be some that would be more oriented toward war, because gods are going to need you to fight war, right? So that really doesn't bother me. I think that that's fine. There were some particular issues that I did have. Divine intervention. Divine intervention. The fact that it doesn't spell out exactly how equal to, okay, for a percentile. All right. Divine intervention is kind of okay. I feel like it used to be that you had to get to level 20 in order to have it automatically succeed. But now it's bumped down to 18. It really is not going to make that big of a difference. It's fine. I thought that there was something in there that said that like there was a chance that you wouldn't be able to use it or again for some time, or that you could piss off your deity. I've probably played too many games, or I might be mixing it up with something else. I kind of don't like that. You can just use it really frequently, but I guess it makes sense thematically. The big problem is that Aaron the Pedantic is not a big fan of epic level games. Not epic level D&D, I should say. I'm just not that wild on that. So the idea that you can call on your deity every 2 to 8 days and they'll do something for you, it's a little crazy to me. But yeah, to me that kind of assumes a world where you're not full of level 20s. So I guess it's fine. I don't know. I just don't care for it personally. I think that from a design perspective, the fact that they are giving you recommended spells throughout, and then saying you can just choose something else. I think that that's good. Actually, I think that's a good idea, just so that people can more quickly put their stuff together. That reminds me, one of my biggest pet peeves is just that they seem to be doing this thing. Okay. Now I'm gonna admit there's a bit of hypocrisy here, because I think I did a video talking about 13th Age, and in that video I talked about how I actually kind of liked the way that your characters could swap features within their class. Give you an example. So, like for instance, if your warrior has a talent that lets you retry their attack if they roll a 16 and they miss, or something like a 60, or I think it was an odd number. It was an odd number that misses. Then you can re-roll the attack or something like that. Being able to swap that with one that says, well, now you can do kind of like a cleave attack or something. That didn't really bother me, but a lot of why it didn't bother me was because it was between adventures. Now, when something is between adventures, then it feels a little bit better. Some of these things that they've put on here, you can change between levels. And to me, I can kind of see that to a degree. The way that a lot of people play is you might be mid-adventure and you level up. That's really one of my biggest qualms there. There's nothing stopping you in the game from letting people level up just because they hit the XP mark. So because of that, they can just change right then in the middle of an adventure. I don't like that. The reason that I'm kind of more open to between adventures is then you could have something that feels kind of like, I don't know, feels kind of like your hero comes back. They've been doing different things. It feels kind of episodic in a way. Now they found out they can do this new thing or whatever. It feels less abrupt, I would say, a little bit more digestible. But then they have some things that they can just do. They can change them overnight. A lot of them are spells. And when it was clerics, I get that. Clerics, they wake up in the morning, they pray to their God, please give me this spell, this spell, this spell, and this spell. And maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But when it comes to wizards or things like, then you're supposed to be getting them from learning, right? You're supposed to know these spells. You got prepared spells, you got known spells. But I've seen a lot of things that they have where it's saying you can just replace. You can just replace this cantrip. You can just replace, just because you slept. And I'm not wild about that. I'm not. I see why they're doing it. It's because players feel unsatisfied. They feel like they have to pick the same ones every time because otherwise they're just not going to have the things that they need whenever they need them, or they have to choose the most useful ones because they're stuck with them forever. But why not instead have categories? Utility, offensive, that kind of thing. You get one of this, one of that, one of that, one of that. It's not that different from in first edition, the way that your magic users would get spells at first level. It's not any different than that. Except for with that, it's supposed to be randomized, but at least then, you're going to get these things. I feel like that would be a better way to go. It feels weird that they're just waking up and they're like, oh yeah, I know how to do mage hand now. Well, why couldn't I do it yesterday? I didn't sleep. It doesn't say anything about having to. Well, I mean, so this hasn't brought in the wizard stuff. So I probably should stop mentioning wizard with all this. This is really focusing on cleric, and I guess it was ranger. So really, these are what tend to be seen as divine primal and stuff like that. But I'm wary of them continuing with that down that path. If they continue to do that, then I'm probably going to have an issue with it. With clerics, I'm not wild about it, but it is what it is. Let's see. I hate the Ardling. I just don't like it. I hate furry stuff. It's just a personal thing. It's not worth much. So the Dragonborn is pretty nuts in my opinion. Here they have more of this stuff where, as you level up, you get more racial features. And then, so now they have it where you can have these breath weapon made energy wings at 5th level that can let you fly. I don't mind that you let them fly. I think it's stupid that that's what it's made out of. It just seems like you didn't want to give them working wings all the time because, then you'd have to worry about the fact that you have another flying race. But you didn't want them to have them all the time. You didn't want them to not have them at all. And this middle ground is just weird to me. It's just, yeah, I mean, it feels like feels like Gundam Wing, like they've got little holes in their back, where they're going to be shooting their rocket fuel out of. And I mean, that's kind of what it feels like. And you just have just shit or get off the pot. Let them fly or don't let them fly. That's my opinion there. Oh my God. No, it wasn't that one. That wasn't that one. I was just thinking, I remembered something else that really, okay. Same thing with the Goliath. The fact that they get a lot for their particular ancestry, as far as the different things. I say a lot. I mean, they don't seem like a lot, but they're, being able to become like a giant form of themselves and, do all kinds of different things. It's just, the large form thing is really the thing that got me more than anything. I mean, most of the stuff from the giant forms, the giant stuff, it's mostly fine. It's really the large form. I'm just like, you're supernaturally growing. Wasn't that something that the giant sorcerer was able to do? I'll leave that to a giant sorcerer. Epic boons. Okay, epic boons. My thought about epic boons is they mostly seem to be pretty tame, and that actually annoyed some people that were expecting them to be epic. They tend to be pretty tame. One of the only ones that I really found to be pretty powerful, there were only a couple of them. Other than that, they mostly just seem to be little tricks. One of the ones I felt was really pretty useful is the one that made it where you don't, I think it's unless you roll a nat 1, you always pass your death saves. I mean, that one seems pretty serious. Let's see. Spells. Guidance. Oh my God, guidance. I have yet to see them do anything with guidance that I feel like is satisfactory. Now, here's the biggest problem. The biggest problem I have with guidance and resistance, actually, as well. It's okay. Resistance, I can maybe excuse. The fact that they are reactionary. So guidance used to be where you would, you'd be, conversing with your friends. Hey, I'm about to try something. All right, I'm going to give you a blessing that should help you in this thing. It lasts for just a small amount of time. I have to concentrate on it. You go do your cool thing, and you're going to do it a little bit better now. The problem is that a lot of people would forget about it, or it would only be useful in situations where, as I said, they took the time to do that. So then they decided, well, we would like people to be able to use it more. So let's make it a reaction. So you can decide to do it. And, whenever somebody fails a roll. So again, we're doing more of these things. We're slowing down, things. Oh, wait. Do this thing, more things that happen after rolls are made. I feel like there's a certain point where it's okay, but we really have to be careful with it not going out of control, in my opinion. Combat's the worst. And it's not quite so bad. But me trying to think about this thematically, what does this look like when this happens? Well, it's used on any ability check. Well, some ability checks are you're wrestling with somebody. Some of them are that you are doing, you're trying to jump a gap or something. Some of it is that you're trying to remember something, but what does it look like when you're actually trying to do this? And some of them just don't really fit well with a reaction. How do you know? And so some people are going to say, Aaron, it's a gameplay mechanic. Stop trying to inject the emergent narrative. No, I want what happens in the game to correspond fairly well with what the fiction that you can unravel from it would be. There's certain things where I can accept, yeah, that's fine. We can do that. But with spells and things like that, I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like doing that. I'm sorry. So especially because they are literally going to be casting a spell out of it. It's not some meta game resource that we're spending as players necessarily. This is a spell that is being cast. There are verbal and somatic components. You are literally doing something. So at what point do you literally do something? At what point do you decide this is the point when I would intervene? That's the big question. And mechanically speaking, it's whenever you've already seen that they rolled low. They already failed. They failed. They didn't roll high enough. And then I'm reacting. So your player character is reacting to something that is purely a metagame thing in a way, in the way that I see it, especially when we're talking about stuff like jumping a gap. There are things like trying to remember something. It's like, oh, I can't remember. Oh, well, here, let me help you out. Sure. That one's fine. I get that. Or I can't solve this puzzle. I can't figure out this riddle. I can't determine, where somebody is at. I'm trying to find, I know they're hiding over there somewhere, but I can't see them. These kinds of things. Sure. You're giving them some kind of arcane, or magical insight is what it calls it. I can see that then, but whenever there are certain things that they either happen then, or they don't happen at all. Like you pass or you fail. And so at what point do I tell that you are about to not make that jump, and then I decide to do a reaction to give you the thing to change that you've already sprung. You've already started the jump. That's an ability check. These are the things. This is why, to me, it was better left as something that you put on somebody before they try it, because then there is something very clear for us to interact with. Because let's be frank, if this is happening in game, like if it's happening as we play, somebody fails a roll, and then you say, "Oh, I'm going to cast guidance." There's not going to be really any kinds of explanation, very likely, of what exactly that looks like from the perspective of the characters. It's not really going to be anything like that, I would imagine. It's just purely, we're just using a metagame thing, and I'm not big on that. Again, I really wasn't that big on that with inspiration and things like that. I feel like it kind of pushes, so guidance is a big one. Resistance, I can kind of see it a little bit, but it still does the same thing. Either make it where they can spin their reaction before they roll, before the person rolls. So that way it's like, I really don't want you to be hurt by this. So I'm going to give you a D4. I'm going to use my reaction to give you a D4 to protect you from this incoming blast that you're about to be hit with. No, instead it's, well, I've been hit with it, but I did poorly. And now I'm going to use, I'm going to have resistance cast on me, from a friend's reaction in order to help me avoid it a little bit more. It's stupid. I don't like it. Don't like. Me personally. Let's see. Bark skin being temporary hit points, I'm not a big fan of, because it's just, we've already got buttons that are temporary hit points. No, I don't think we really need that. They don't need to be all the same. The problem is that, they had something, people didn't like it, but they're just going the lazy route. Temporary hit points is like vanilla ice cream. No, vanilla ice cream is delicious. So I'm not going to say that. Let's see what else. The dazed condition. So they've added some conditions. Maybe they've already had them. Dazed, slowed. I like these conditions. I actually think that these are good. So that is a positive thing I've noticed. Whenever you use tools, the fact that you can use your proficiency bonus, and then you can get advantage if you're proficient with the tool and the skill, you can get advantage. I actually think that's kind of neat. I haven't done the math to see exactly how that would, make things play out, but I think that that's kind of neat. The help action requires for somebody to be proficient in whatever skill it is to provide the assistance, I think is good. I don't know if it's always been that way, but I like that. They seem to be adding more actions again that are explicitly telling the DM you need to let them roll care for that. I do think that it's good that they added more description on just what being hidden does and stuff like that. I think that that's neat. The way that light weapons work whenever dual wielding, the way this dual wielding works, I think that's okay. I never really felt like it was a huge problem, but people have had very strong opinions talking about how they could never use any bonus actions ever because they wanted to dual wield. And so I don't care. It's fine. I get it. I played a character that dual wielded. I played a rogue, and so I used my bonus action for a lot of things, and I still dual wielded. What I did was I was just particular. Am I going to use my bonus action for this or this time? I always use a bonus action, but what was it for? And I actually kind of enjoyed that. I enjoyed the mental exercise of trying to figure that out. But I'm not the kind of person that really thinks about how much I compare to what the other characters are doing. So that may be why that didn't bother me so much. Exhaustion. Okay, so we were talking about things that they really, really made less. They took the impact out of. Now having 10 levels of exhaustion and simplifying what they do. The simplification of what exhaustion does, it makes it easier, because it used to be that they would have disadvantage on all these things, and disadvantage has all kinds of negative effects. And there were just all kinds of things that it would really screw up for them. Now it just makes you have, lower rolls, which, I mean, part of it is good, because now your attack rolls are suffering in a way that they used to not suffer as much for a while. But on the other hand, there are a lot of other things wrapped up in exhaustion that are going to be left alone. And it's better in that it's simpler. So it's better that people will remember to use it properly, probably. But it's also that you're not going to get exhausted to death unless you're really negligent of what your character's doing. What else do we have here? Oh, the fact that guidance. Okay, so there's certain things that are primal spells that I feel like should be just divine spells. I'm sure you can guess at the first one. You guess at the first one? Cure wounds. Yeah, cure wounds, I believe, falls under the divine and the primal. Let's see. Yes, it does. Which of course it does, because they want druids to be able to heal. I don't particularly want that too much, especially not at first level. I don't hate it. I'm less upset about that than I am about like rangers healing really, really at low levels, or that kind of thing. I liked that Rangers used to be such that it was whenever they were pretty strong and very capable adventurers for quite a long time, that then they're starting to get magic abilities. I really like that, and I wish that that's what they would have done. Honestly, same thing with the Paladin. I mean, the Paladin has always been able to lay on hands, but they haven't always been able to cast a whole bunch of different spells. So, spiritual weapon, I actually don't hate what they did there. I know a lot of people are mad because it's concentration now. But I think that the fact that if you wade into combat, swinging around your mace and then you've got your spectral mace, whatever, I think that because the fact that you are constantly interacting, on a mental level with that thing and controlling it, I think it should be a concentration spell. I think that's fairly obvious. I mean, anything where you're still moving it around with your mind, I feel like it should be a concentration spell, pretty much. If it's a persistent effect, then that's a little different. But that's not just a persistent effect. That's controlling directly. A persistent effect could be something like Crown of Madness. Even then, that is concentration. Keep that in mind. As far as I can remember, that is concentration. But if you have it where, hey, for the next hour, you're going to do whatever I say. Like, you're not using your brain to command them what to say. All you have to do is say the words. They're still under your enchantment. So I could see an argument for why that wouldn't be concentration. I like that they spelled out true a lot more, because now it makes obvious that anything with true sight should be able to see anybody hidden, pretty much, or disguising themselves or anything like that. I thought that was good. The cleric one, I did the expert one. Did I do the expert one? Bard. Biggest thing about Bard, I feel like, is just that, they that was the lore Bard that gets the no, it's not. Okay. Yeah, the fact that your Bard can dip into divine magic, I think is repugnant. I think it completely goes against what the whole concept should be. I think that anybody who is not pretty much working directly with the gods in one way or another shouldn't be able to do any kind of divine magic unless they are born from some kind of divine race. That's my opinion on that. Primal stuff, if you're able to do primal stuff, I feel like you should have some kind of very deep connection to nature. It sounds very obvious. I feel like bards, they should have connections to arcane spells, but I don't know that it really would help them necessarily to do that, because now they can always just kind of switch whatever spells they want and that are on the arcane list, because that's the one they have already. And since it's not divided by class as much, now it's just here's the arcane the list. Then now it's just suggested spells. So how that's going to get rid of the way that you did have some uniqueness to, like, for instance, Bard, having spells that are primarily oriented around enchantment and things like that, and then some unique ones. How does that work whenever you've just got 3 spell lists? I'm curious. It's easier to have 3 spell lists, but at the same time, you're losing thematic things, and you're going into territories that I think are beneficial. Okay. Multi-classing rules are too lenient still. I feel like they've always been too lenient in 5e, and I think that they should definitely. So it's good that they have the prerequisites. I think that they should limit it to maybe 2 classes, and I think that I think it's still a little bit too generous. Just the way that the leveling system works out, it's just too generous. You get too much too soon, and that makes it where dips are incredibly powerful. Rogue, I don't remember seeing anything with the rogue that didn't that really didn't gel with me. Rogue seems fine. There's nothing about it that really, really struck me in a bad way. Thief is still good. I like Thief as a subclass. Here we have more feats, and I think most of these were fine. Dual wielder. I feel like they made this change where now, as part of an attack, like whenever you're making the attack action as part of an attack, not an attack action, as part of an attack, you can draw or sheath a weapon either before or after the attack. So what this does is this completely gets rid of quick draw being a thing that's worth anything. That was one reason that I tended, when I did play with feats, to get the dual wielder feat, was because then I could, I could draw two. I could draw two anytime I needed to, and I'd have them ready. So that way, if I needed to draw something else after I've used them, let's say I'm throwing daggers, and then I want to draw something else to have the next one ready, I could do that. I could do it easily. But, or if I needed to pull out a potion, pull out this, pull out that, it was very easy for me to do that because of that. Now it's not quite so necessary. It's not quite so necessary to have that kind of thing in order to be able to remain useful in that capacity. So I think that's kind of unfortunate. It's good that they made like sharpshooter, crossbow expert, and great weapon mastery less potent, in my opinion, because there are less of those things where everybody feels like that if we're getting feats that they need to have one of those if they're a melee person because they need to do maximum damage. That's what I think about that. I'm not really big on the protection fighting style. I liked whenever you're able to impose disadvantage. Kind of ironic, right? The -2 on the attack roll, not quite as wild about. I kind of liked disadvantage. I think disadvantage is just kind of elegant. I'm kind of surprised that they decided to make it a flat penalty. Let's see. Grappling. Grappling I found interesting. It says that they at the end of their turn they can choose whenever they're grappled. Not they can choose. It says that they can make a saving throw in order to get themselves released. So what this looks like is I just spent my attack to grapple you. You can attack me and then break free without having to use any kind of action. That's the way that I interpret what they wrote, and I think that's kind of bullshit. At the very least, you grapple me, I ungrapple, and then we just missed a round or whatever. To me, that makes a little bit more sense. The fact that I dedicated my attack to try and grab you, I think is, I think that's good. Now we need to think in terms of what that would do for somebody who's trying to run away, because grappling is primarily good for running, getting people that are trying to run away. It's not good for like pinning or anything like that, really. So the fact that it makes it where they can't move and you can drag them is a benefit. It's just that you are going to be stabbed in the meantime. And I don't know. I'm not set on that. I'm still thinking about that, about how that would play out. I'm curious what y'all think on that. Keen Mind no longer makes it where you can remember anything. Which I think it's interesting. The way that one plans out. Again, they have all these things where they've just really brought down what a lot of them do. Observant, it's still, you can get expertise in perception that way. What was it? Oh, before it used to be like a flat bonus. It was a +5. Okay. That is better than what it used to be, in my opinion. Because that people would stack the whole thing. I'm going to get observant. I'm also going to get expertise in perception, and now I have like a 25 perception, passive perception, or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous. This is get rid of that, so that's a good thing, I guess. That's fine. Mounted combatant is just as weird as it always was. I always felt it was kind of weird. specifically leap aside, the whole thing where you can get your horse to get evasion. You know, just conceptually, just thinking about how exactly that works. It doesn't even use a reaction or anything. Like I would think it would need to use a reaction, because you, as the mount, the person who's using it, you would have to indicate somehow to your horse that, hey, you need to get out of the way. I feel like that would require an action, or not an action, a reaction at the very least. It doesn't do that. It's just, no, they just get the evasion ability, basically. I think that's kind of weird. That's a really, really potent one if you happen to use mounts. A lot of people don't use mounts, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Oh my God, this one. Was it this one? No, it wasn't that one. One of these. Was it resistance? There is something on here. Where is it? Oh, one of these things. Where is it? Okay, I can't remember where it was. Oh, okay, it was a level 20 epic boon. There's a level 20 epic boon. I can't remember. I think it's just like epic boon of resistance or something. Energy resistance, maybe, where every day you can decide what element you want to be resistant against. So you can be resistant against thunder or lightning today. Tomorrow you can be resistant against fire. To me, pick one, stick with it. You know, instead it's like, oh, where are we going? You know, we're going to go fight a cloud giant. I need this kind. You know, to me, like, it's just so gamey. It's just so, like, it's trying to appease the players so much. I just don't want the players to be sad. You know, it's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. It's just ridiculous, I think. It's all I really don't have any other. I mean, I've got more thoughts, and I definitely want to get my friends on here to talk about it again sometime. I really want to get back to doing the good stuff, though. You know, doing stuff like DCC, doing the 1E stuff, all that. I really want to get back to that. There are so many things that I've been reading that I just have not had the time to make videos on, and I'm going to be making time. That's the big thing. I'm going to be making time for it. My career is getting a little bit less hectic, so that will provide an opportunity for me to do that stuff. James says, "Leave my goddamn multi-classing alone." No, I would prefer, if it's between multi-class. Okay, multi-classing done right, I don't hate. Multi-classing done right, to me, I feel like the way it was done in first edition was not that bad, because it required more work to multi-class. It required more work. It was rarer. You know, it was less accessible. Those kinds of things made it, to me, okay. It wasn't, and you didn't get so much from your classes. You get so much stuff from your classes here. You know, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Well, I didn't mean to click that. These feats, powers, abilities, whatever, all have in common a lack of an exploratory background. Yeah, that's something that they've never really been that concerned about with their design philosophy, is trying to suggest that you should, there should be some kind of procedure required to explain where you get these things. There's just nothing. It's just, oh, you level up. There you go. You get new stuff. That's been a problem for the entire edition. Change it. They're not that worried about it. So, Alex, reaction cantrip. Yeah, I don't think there were a lot of reaction. I don't think there were any reaction cantrips before. So, that's pretty nuts. I've missed the cognitive dissonance these videos raise in my poor 1E mind. The game has moved in such strange and unusual directions. This is what happens whenever we get so far from Gygax, right? Every year we're farther from Gygax. So give a shout out to RPG a look. BX based, but like DCC, has modern flavor without sacrificing originality. Quick start rules are thorough and free. Ooh, that does sound cool. Man, let's see, do we have any new comments? All right, I can imagine maybe character choosing all sorts of mismatched things, expecting to be called out on it, only to be met with sweet character dude. Yeah, that it's really hard to mess up your characters. It's possible, like there is the joke of the character absurd, which is Puffin Forrest, I think his name is, where he literally took one level from every class, and even then, like he'd be good at a lot of things, just not that good at them, and with some things he'd be fine, I guess. He'd be pretty terrible. That's really the only way to really mess that up, is to spread it too thin. If you don't spread it too thin, you're probably fine. And nowadays, if something doesn't work, just switch it when you level up, or switch it when you take a long rest. It's heartbreaking. I don't know. I think we should. I think that they would do better to go back to trying to make the adventures matter and not the character building as much. That's the biggest qualm I have. Character building is the game in a lot of ways. The game itself is the secondary activity that you do sometimes. Maybe you don't even do it all. So that's all I really have time today. I really appreciate people coming by and hanging out. It was awesome. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for sticking with us. Those of you that are doing the rewatch, beware. The first, I don't know how long of the stream went poorly because of technical problems. So bear with us. And maybe you'll enjoy some of the other parts. But next time, hopefully my internet will not act up and I can have more people participate than just me. We tried, but there's a delay and it was just going to be too ridiculous. So thank you all for being here. Y'all take it easy. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend and have great gaming and stuff. Peace out. Yeah, Christmas is coming up. So if I don't see you before then, Merry Christmas or whatever else you celebrate.